Ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls, I did a video a couple of days ago where I said all of you can share your struggles with me and I will answer them either in a voice message or a video. We're here and I'm joined with lovely Emmy because it's relevant to today's video. So this lovely, courageous woman, Candace, says, I'm struggling with depression and with my relationship with food. I then asked her for a little bit more details. And you go on to say, Candace, I think it's anorexia as I skip eating where I can. I'm feeling like I'm fat, but others say I'm not fat. The depression feeling on and off is because I want to try to make my family happy, but I feel like I'm not doing good enough, even though they say I'm doing good. And before we get into that, I want to point out to you, Candace, and everybody else listening, that Candace wrote this comment right down the very bottom, the third comment there on the screen, to someone else who was going through some struggles and feeling like nobody cared about him and no one was rooting for him. She took the time, Candace, you took the time to reply to this guy and say, you got this. I know you've got some tough days, but they will get better. I'm rooting for everyone here, even Mr. Andy Wells. You all are loved by someone and you are all cared for. That love is kind of going to be the focus of today's video. The fact that you can be that courageous and kind to someone else, we're going to try and get you to turn that back on yourself and give yourself a little bit of that same advice and that same love that you're giving to other people. But is there anything you want to start with this, anorexia and skipping eating and feeling like you're fat even when other people say you're not fat?
I think the only thing that I'll add to begin with is that for context, I've also been somebody that's struggled with eating since I was about 12 years old.
Yeah.
I was clinically diagnosed with bulimia when I was about 12. So just making myself sick after meals and have not been super kind or loving to my body for a long time. And it's definitely at a point where it's gotten a lot better and I'm a lot better with my self-image, but it's certainly not perfect. And it's something that I'm constantly working on, but I've, spoken with lots and lots and lots of people about this from lots of different fields to work on being kinder to myself. And obviously with you, Mr. Coach Andy, we often talk about this stuff together as well.
Yeah, and lots of my coaching clients have come to me with body dysmorphia, especially the men. Like a lot of you guys will probably be able to relate to this, of feeling like your body just isn't perfect enough. How many of you out there are like, I'm too skinny, I don't have enough muscle? Or maybe you have lots of muscle, but you're like, yeah, but my biceps aren't as big as they should be. I will keep working on my body and then I'll go outside and put myself out there and talk to women. And you're basically waiting for that moment when you're supposedly perfect. And that moment never really comes. There's never going to be a moment when you're perfect. I can flip that around and say the opposite. There will always be something for you to be judgmental and critical of in yourself. And so, Candace, you being brave and opening up about this, realize that you're not alone. Like you saying, I skip eating, I feel like I'm fat. Yeah, that's like so much of the population. That's so many people. You're basically saying, I feel like my body isn't perfect. But what you're allowed to do, you can kind of let go of some of that self-criticism and say, look, what do I actually want? Like, would I like to lose a little bit of weight? If so, I'm allowed to. Am I happy with where I am right now, but I'm just worried that other people will judge me? If so, I'm allowed to stay exactly where I am right now. My current position, you said it best. You want to say the quote that you said before?
Is that with your body, you are probably somebody else's go away. Like I remind myself of that sometimes because I am somebody that can be very critical of my body and I'll have lots of fat days. And I remind myself like somebody who's, 100 kilos, 150 kilos, they would probably kill to be in my position, in my body. And maybe I'm not doing so bad.
Yeah, and it's so easy to focus on the flaws and the things that we supposedly need to fix. And then we tell a story of how we're broken. But yeah, to repeat that quote, you are probably somebody's goal weight. The weight that you are right now, somebody who's like, I don't know what weight you are right now, but let's pick an absolutely extreme example. I've worked with a few coaching clients that were like 300 or so, 350 pounds. They would kill to be your weight. There's obviously people that are heavier than that and they would kill to be your weight. There's a lot of people that would love to be where you're at right now. Or maybe they don't have the compassion and the love that you have. Again, look at the third comment that you wrote here. You wrote a very loving, compassionate, kind comment. There's lots of people that would kill to be that giving, but they're in such a place of hurt right now that they just can't get there. And so essentially what we're saying here right now is you're not broken. You're not needing fixing. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not fat, which is just an arbitrary fucking opinion anyway, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you probably have a lot in your life right now that is lovable about you. And so what I would love to see you do is get out a piece of paper or do it on your computer, write down 50 things that you have to offer the world, or 50 reasons why you're lovable, 50 reasons why you're likable. And you'll write that list and you'll go, you know what? Even if I'm trying to phrase this in a certain way, even if I do carry around some excess body weight right now, that would be like a kind way of saying it, rather than I'm fat, even if I have a little bit of body weight or body fat, look at all this other shit that I have to offer. There's 50 reasons why I'm lovable or likable.
And sometimes you and I, like specifically with me, have done the exercise where I'm trying to come up with some things that I like about my body. And something that helps sometimes is focusing less on aesthetics and more on
function.
Yes, functionality. So I'll often say, I'm grateful that I'm relatively healthy. I'm very mobile. I don't really have much pain in my body, that I can get up and move and do most things. And often I forget that a lot of the things that I'm physically able to do, a lot of people aren't. Like a lot of people don't wake up pain-free or can like go for a jog around the block.
To have your body, even if you have some excess body weight on it, they would kill to have your body because at least it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have all your limbs and you have, your sight and your hearing and taste, like all of those things. I think there's so much to be grateful for when you start recognizing that a lot of people can't do a lot of those things, let alone because like I like to keep quite fit. And so I do push my body in a lot of ways with like jiu-jitsu and pole dancing, but like that is then even one step beyond that. But I think sometimes just focusing on those things, just that you have your health and that you have your mobility, that's something to be so grateful for. Even simple things, like sometimes when I'm really struggling to find physical things that I'm grateful or happy with in my body, sometimes I'll be like, I'm so glad that my body like digests food properly and gives me energy and just functions in the way that it should so that I can live and be alive, or like is capable of like reproduction and creating life. Like, isn't that amazing that my body is able to do that? Like there's a lot of wonders and fantastic things in the body if you're able to acknowledge them and give gratitude for them. Or even sometimes like if you've had an injury or like you have a little cut on your hand, so every time you like pick something up or wash your hand, like it hurts a little bit and you're like, fuck, that's annoying. Or like you've bitten your own tongue and so it's like it's sore for the next day. And often when I have those things going on, I'll be like, I'll be so grateful when like I don't have that thing anymore. Like, isn't it nice when I don't have a cut on my hand or my wrist isn't sore or my back isn't sore? Like, but you forget about those things. When everything's working as it should, you forget to be grateful for them until you don't have them.
But yeah, we demonize fat and we say it's like this bad, evil fucking thing. If you actually get autistic about it and say, okay, what is fat? Fat is because I ate excess calories, more than my body could consume. And so my body is keeping those so that I will stay alive. And then you can start to look at the fat on your body, or you can look at your body and say, wow, body, you're just trying to keep me alive. I gave you extra calories. And the way that you've been programmed or the way that you've evolved is to store those calories as fat so that I don't fucking die. Wow. Thank you for keeping me alive. Again, with body dysmorphia and with anorexia and bulimia, and any of you guys out there who hate on your own body and say it's not good enough, you're too skinny, you're too fat, you're not muscular, any of that stuff. Understand that the body is doing what it is doing to try and keep you alive. But we demonize it and say, what the fuck is wrong with my body? Why is my stupid body so ugly? Why am I so fat? Why am I so this? Your body's just trying to do the best that it can. It's doing what it's been programmed to do. And understanding that can help you have a little bit more, I wouldn't even say forgiveness, but just understanding and compassion towards your body doing what it was programmed to do and what it's meant to do to keep you alive. And realizing that, you can then start to work with the body. And you can say, okay, I'm going to stop hating you and guilt tripping you and feeling shame and beating you up, innocent little body that's just doing what it's programmed to do. I would like to lose some fat. Okay, how do I work with the body instead of fighting against the body and hating the body? And part of how you might do that is I'll go for a 10-minute walk every day. And then eventually I move that up to 15 minutes, then half an hour. I just add some exercise in. Or you know what? I'm going to start cutting out a little bit of soda or pop, as those in the South in America call it. Or I'm going to start eating keto. That's a pretty easy way to start losing weight. There's an adjustment period for a couple of weeks, which can be a little bit of a struggle to get through. And then for the most part, you're just not really ever hungry because you're eating mostly meats and, a little bit of vegetables and stuff like that. It's pretty easy to stick to keto once you've adjusted to it. So that could be a way. You could join an exercise class. There's all these different ways of losing weight where you're working with your body instead of demonizing it. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to here, is a little bit of that beautiful love that you're showing to this other commenter. And then I'm sure, Candace, you're walking around showing a lot of people love. Let's turn that around. Let's hold up the mirror and get you to show that love to yourself.
Yeah. And speaking from personal experience, I know it's so much easier to, especially when it comes to bodies, like give love to other people.
Yeah. Candace is really good at giving love to other people. Maybe just a little not practiced with giving that to herself.
Yeah. That you can see her hurting. Like even the other day, like 2 days ago, I do pole dancing, and we had a competition with a group of other girls, and we were all performing together. And one of the girls in my group was saying that she all of a sudden was feeling really, really terrible about her body, and she was getting really emotional. And all of these girls came in and gave her so much love and compassion and kindness and cuddles, and we all squeezed her boobs to make her feel better.
What the fuck? Okay.
She said it generally made her feel better.
Can you squeeze my boobs to show me that I'm
No,
beautiful?
like we're giving her cuddles, and then someone like squeezed her tit, and she like giggled, and she was like, "That actually does make me feel
This
better."
is like a little kid. Yeah, that's adorable. Sure.
But point being that it was so easy for me to give her love, and yet to give myself that same love with my own body. I totally understand that can be challenging sometimes.
That is the challenge, yeah. Our challenge is being ourselves, really accepting who we are. That's also the reward, because when you start to accept who you are, holy fuck, that is its own reward. But that's the challenge of life.
Yeah, and especially with things like body dysmorphia, or maybe the layman's term would just be like not objectively looking at your body, but putting a lot of judgment onto your body and calling it certain names, or making those assessments from a very biased place. When you're doing that, it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to gauge like what is kind to your body, or what is healthy, or what is actually good for me. And so I find that a good test, or something that I work with myself a lot, is one, not focusing so much on aesthetics and more on health.
Yeah.
And even the idea of like health and wellness can be a bit of a loaded topic, but to simplify it down even further, what I like to boil it down to is like, if I was caring for somebody else or caring for a child, like what would I say to them? Like, would I be feeding my child junk food every single day because they want it? Like, I don't think that's actually a kindness to overindulge every single day, all of the time. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't say to a child, like, you can never have lollies, you can never have cakes. Like, that also doesn't feel like a kindness. But it's finding that nice balance of like, okay, we're in a very loving, gentle way, we're going to focus on keeping you healthy and well fed. And if you're hungry, we're absolutely going to feed you. Like, coming back to those really basic things. And I think using a small child as like your baseline is a nice point to start from, because I think our natural instinct is to treat kids with kindness and with love and with a gentleness, but also with a certain level of understanding and control that we also want to be looking after you, not overindulging.
Yeah. And so, Candace, basically the kindness and the compassion that you've shown in your third comment here to someone else, show that same kindness and compassion to yourself. You can kind of ask the question, what would I do for my best friend? Or what would I say to my best friend? What advice would I give my best friend if they were feeling exactly the way that I'm feeling right now? If they were feeling like they're fat, even if other people say they're not fat. If they were feeling a bit depressed and feeling like they're not doing good enough, even though other people say they are good enough. What would you say to that friend of yours? What advice would you give them? Byron Katie, one of my favorite people, has a quote, all the advice we give other people was for us to hear. Like you said, we're often really good at giving advice to other people. Like, we're just really good at it. And then it's like, all right, take that advice yourself. Oh, no, it doesn't apply to me because I'm a piece of shit, or I'm fat, or I'm ugly, or I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough. And you're like, you wouldn't say that about anyone else. And it's like, yeah, but everyone else is doing a good job and I'm not. And that's sort of the ego part of ourselves that goes, I'm extra special. I have to do a better job than I would expect of anyone else. My standards for myself are way higher than my standards for anyone else. In other words, I bully, and you don't mean to, but like I bully and I'm a little unfair to myself and unkind to myself, even though I would never even consider doing that to someone else, because that wouldn't be kind. I'd probably upset them. I'd probably hurt them. It wouldn't feel good. They would yell at me. And that's part of it too. a lot of the time it can be so much easier to be kind to other people because you know if you're not, they're going to fucking yell at you. If you're really unkind, they might even hit you or they might try and get revenge. But with yourself, you're almost like this victim, this innocent child that can't really stand up for itself. You can say the meanest, wildest shit to yourself, and people do. You know, we're often or almost always our own worst or harshest critic because we can't fight back. We're just going to take it. We're just going to go, yeah, you're right. I am a loser. I am fat. I am not good enough. You're right. Nothing I do matters. Nothing I do is good enough. I'm all alone. You're right. Like we just believe the things that we say about ourselves. And so that's why we jump in there and we start some of these self-love exercises, you know, writing 50 reasons why you're likable, working on that beautiful self-esteem, being kind to yourself in the way that you're easily able to be kind to someone else here, as you've just demonstrated on a different video. So yeah, it's about flipping that around and turning that beautiful, loving energy towards yourself, even when you feel like you don't deserve it, which a lot of you feel like that. You're like, I don't have a girlfriend, therefore I don't deserve love. I don't have a Lamborghini in my garage, therefore I'm not good enough. All these other people are millionaires by their 20s or 30s, and I'm just living at home. I'm a piece of shit. Like, it's so much easier to be harsh on yourself than other people. And again, that is the challenge and the reward of life, being ourselves. Being you is the biggest challenge that you have. It's also the biggest reward if you can just be you and accept who you are. And that doesn't mean not self-improvement. Like, let's make that very clear. And so we didn't even really say this, but Candace, if you were in my coaching group, when I do content, I often like to think, what would I do if this person is my coaching client? Because that's just the best place that I start from. And so if you were a client of mine, the first thing that I would say to you, the very first thing that I would say to you is, what do you actually want, Candace? And you'd go, well, you know, I should lose weight because I'm fat. And I go, no, I'm not interested in what you should do. I'm not interested in guilt tripping or shame or should or have to or need to or must or what other people think you should do or what the guilty part of you, like the guilt tripping part of you, thinks you should do. I'm not interested in any of that. That's all just a bunch of bullshit that people make up. What's in your freaking heart? What do you want? What kind of person do you want to be? What is your ideal self, like the person that you would be most proud of? Not anyone else. I'm not giving a fuck about anyone else. Who would you be proud to be? And if your answer was, I actually think I want to be the person that I am right now, like I don't want to lose any weight. I just want to learn to love this body that I have right now. Brilliant. That's what you want. Let's work on that. If you said, no, honestly, if I really dig deep and look inside myself, I think I would like to lose maybe like 20 pounds. I think that's what I really want. I'd say, brilliant. Let's work on losing those pounds. If you said, I want to lose a little bit of weight, but really I just want to be healthier. I think that fitness and health and like feeling good in my body and having energy levels, that's what I want. Then great, we would work on that. And so I would go away and spend a little bit of time asking yourself what you want and who you want to be, and take away what your family wants, take away what society wants, take away what you think I or Imi might say. It's, what do you want? What does Candace want? And that applies to any of you listening as well. What do you want? I don't give a shit who you think you should be or you have to be. Fuck that. That's all just nonsense. Who do you want to be? What is in your heart? What is calling to you? You said it before. Sometimes that can be hard to like pull out because the voices speak up in your head of like, no, you can't do that. That's not going to work. Limiting beliefs and all of that.
But I think in addition to that as well, depending on like levels of like severity with disordered eating or body dysmorphia or whatever it might be, you even if you spend a lot of time reflecting, you might not have the best gauge of what is good for you. Like people with like very severe...
But that again is still missing. That's still like trying to find the right answer. Like, what is good for me?
I guess the example that I'm going to give is like somebody with severe anorexia that like, you know, is considered like a mental illness, that if they're really stuck in it, probably going to be hell-bent on like being so, weight, being so severely underweight to the point that it's killing them.
You can go deeper on that and you can say, why do you want to lose weight? Because I want to accept myself. I want to love myself. Okay, acceptance and love is what you want. You've just gotten caught up in, I have to lose the weight to do that.
Sure. So I would say I wouldn't trust somebody who's severely anorexic to assess what might be a positive goal.
Yeah, and that's where it can help having a coach or a mentor or a therapist or someone that cares, because they'll go, okay, I'm hearing that you want to lose weight and that you want to be anorexic. Why? And then they'll go, well, Because I want to like myself. I want to look in the mirror and be proud of my body. I just want to accept my body for once. I'm sick of hating my body. I'm sick of being fat. And you go, so you want self-acceptance. Let's work on that. That's separate from anorexia. That has nothing to do with anorexia. In fact, anorexia is just like you said, can often be an excuse to beat yourself up even more, and a mental illness where you go deeper and deeper into self-hatred and flagellation, almost like beating yourself up. Why do I have even just 0.1% body fat? I'm disgusting. I'm fat. So what you're looking for is self-love. And yeah, I agree with you. That is the challenge, I guess, is there's so much information out there in the world saying who you should be, what you have to do, and all of that, which is why, again, in my coaching program, I start with what do you want? And then from there, I start teasing out why you want that. What is the meaning behind that? How can we start making that happen? Would that actually lead to your happiness? Because you're right. Sometimes people will say a goal. Like I've had people come to the coaching program. What do you want? And they go, I want to fuck 100 bitches. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, they're women, but you want to fuck 100 women. Why? They go, well, because it's fun. I just want pussy. And you're like, okay, but like, why do you want to have sex with 100 women? That's a lot. And I've had sex with lots of women too. But why do you want that? And they're like, well, if I'm honest, because I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I feel like if I have sex with 100 women, that will make me feel like a masculine man. Okay. What you're looking for is self-acceptance then. 100 women might not bring you that. You might go have sex with 100 women and feel even more disconnected from the female species and from other people than you do right now. And so, you got to tease out that deeper stuff.
And I think especially with food and eating, I think the same thing can be said there, is that a lot of the reason, like especially why I wanted to control my weight and the way that I looked was so that I could be happy in myself and comfortable and confident in my body. And then I guess if you start looking at the tangibles of what it takes to have a body that is quite underweight, it might mean that you are food obsessed, because when you start starving your body, your like animal brain kicks in and starts thinking about food a lot more so that you will feed it because it's hungry. And so you might be hungry or low energy or irritable or might lose your period or have a low sex drive. And so then if you start looking at objectively what it might take to get the body that you want, that you say will make you happy, the things that might require might also contribute to your not being happy. And so I think just a general good baseline, and I said it before, we both said it before, is that like health or like performance can be a nice goal. I had a physio that said it perfectly once, because he worked with a lot of athletes, but also like bodybuilders, people that were training for aesthetics versus for performance. And he said the people with the best bodies are the ones that focus on performance, and the body naturally comes.
Yeah.
Because if you're an athlete and you're wanting to be very fit and active, you're not going to underfeed yourself, because you need that fuel to be healthy, to be able to perform. And it's when you start changing up your goal and focus less on how things look and more on how you feel, that the body or the aesthetics that most people are trying to achieve, like a healthy, fit body, that's when that comes a bit more naturally. And when you move away from, the obsession about that little bit of body fat and more on like what it feels like one thing with performance, it's moving towards something higher and like beautiful and
a higher
like,
meaning.
It's a higher goal versus aesthetics. I think it kind of gets you stuck at a certain level, and it can only really be so high, if that makes sense.
Let's touch very briefly on the last little bit of Candace's sort of question here, or struggle, which is the depression. The depression comes on and off because I want to try to make my family happy, but I feel like I'm not doing good enough, even though they say I'm doing good enough. Candace and anyone else in this position, I would highly recommend you listen to a book, an audiobook called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Literally answers this question. There's another book called I Need Your Love, Is That True? By Byron Katie. And both of these cover that feeling that we often get of like, I want to make other people happy. I want other people to tell me that I'm doing good enough. You, Candace, right now, literally have people telling you that you're doing good enough, but you're not believing it because you, in your own internal voice, don't believe that you're doing good enough. So that's what you got to start working on. All the people in the world could tell you that you're doing good enough, and you will just ignore it, throw it away, say they're wrong, say that they're mistaken, which is what you're currently doing. People will tell you you're not fat, which you just said people have told you that. And you go, wrong, they're wrong, they don't know what they're talking about, I am fat, they're stupid, they're dumb. you throw it all away. And this is just what we do when we don't believe I'll say it's when we don't have self-love, or we don't have maybe the highest self-esteem that we could have. And so that's what you got to work on here. That's what you get to work on. That's your beautiful opportunity to work on, is that relationship with yourself. Because again, everyone in the world can tell you that you're doing good enough, but if you don't believe it, they may as well just be saying nothing. They may as well tell you that you suck and that you're doing a bad job, and you'll probably believe that because that's secretly what you believe. So again, those two books, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying and I Need Your Love, is that true? I think maybe with depression in general, I've worked with quite a lot of people who were depressed. I promise you that there is a way through it. I promise you that you're allowed to be happy. I was obviously depressed and suicidal for like 8 or so years, but I've said this a lot to you and in content. Basically 100% of the time that I've ever met someone who was depressed, it was because they weren't happy with their life and they were doing things that they thought they should do or they had to do or they must do, but they weren't really doing what they wanted to do. In other words, they weren't listening to the internal voice that says, I'm not happy right now. I don't like doing this. And they just sort of went along with it. Maybe a marriage that they weren't happy with, maybe a job that they hate, any of those kind of things. And they're just sort of like putting up with life and doing a bunch of stuff that isn't true to them and doesn't make them happy. You're another example of that. You literally said the depression feeling is on and off. You're self-aware enough to know why. You're intelligent and self-aware enough, look at you go, to know it's because I'm trying to make my fucking family happy. And they even tell me, hey, honey, we're happy. You're doing a good job. And you're like, no, it's not good enough. And so at some point, I would take a little step back and I would start saying, what do I, Candace, want to do? Not what I think I should do, not what a good wife or mother or, whatever you are, daughter. You are a daughter. Literally, if you're a female, you are a daughter. But whatever you are, whatever relationship you have with your family, start saying, who do I want to be? Not what do they think I should be, or not what do I think they think I should be. All of this is expectations and pressure that you're putting on yourself. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to actually make you happy is you listening to your heart and your own internal compass of who you want to be. And if you struggle with that, start thinking about it. This is something that might take you a little while to figure out, who do I actually want to be? What would actually make me happy? You might have to experiment a little bit. You might have to try some different things and say, hey, I like how I feel when I do this. I don't like how I feel when I do that. But I would almost take an inventory of your life and go through your life, like keep a journal over the next week or the next month. Write down every time you feel yourself feeling a little bit of unhappiness or resentfulness, resentment. Anytime you're feeling like, oh, I did that, but I didn't really want to do that. I just did it because I thought I should. Write all of that down. And then all of that is stuff that you can start slowly improving or letting go of or talking to people about and saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I know I've done it for you forever, but I think I'm unhappy when I do it. And they'll either be okay with that or they won't. But either way, you're going to stop doing it. Similarly, every time you have a thought or a dream of something that you want to do, maybe you do say you want to lose weight, you want a nice thin body. Beautiful. If that's what you genuinely want, that's amazing. What a great goal, Or maybe you say, I want to travel and I've never traveled around the world. Or I want to get more into self-improvement. Or I want to try this BDSM and kink stuff that I hear so much about. Like whatever your head says that you want to try, write that down. And that is almost like your bucket list of things that you're allowed to start taking some baby steps towards. In other words, that is your goal list. That is who you want to start being. And again, this might take a little bit of time. It sometimes takes time. Some of my coaching clients struggle with this. They obviously have me and the other coaches there to help them with this, but sometimes they struggle to know who they want to be, what goals they want to work on, what would bring them meaning or joy or love or happiness. They don't know what things they want to stop doing. It's a process. We don't expect you to just wake up tomorrow and have an answer as to who you want to be and what goals you have and what your heart is telling you. A lot of the time that gets so mixed up in what you think you should do that it can take a little bit of time to untangle that from what you actually want to do. But yeah, depression is almost always, at least in my experience, almost always because you're doing a bunch of stuff you don't want to be doing and you're not doing a bunch of stuff that you do secretly want to be doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be depressed. If you loved your life and you loved yourself, it's literally physically impossible to be depressed unless you have a chemical imbalance, in which case that would easily be cleaned up with a doctor's appointment and they would give you the right medication. You're like, oh, wow, I'm happy now. So Yeah, it's almost always because you're not happy with your life and the choices that you're making. Good news is we can change that.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly, and it applies in every respect, whether that's eating, depression, self-love, whatever it might be, is that it, it takes continuous work. And
Yeah.
even now, like with both of us working at this stuff for a combined very long time, we still have off days and days when we're hard on ourselves and not kind to ourselves and struggle with things or get sad or I overeat or I binge eat or maybe I make myself sick. Whatever it might be, it's okay. Like, it's a journey and you kind of just take it step by step and you work on those gradual improvements. And like Andy said, certain books can help and having people to check in with can help, people to talk to. And you just take it day by day and work on making things a little bit better for yourself.
Yeah, and to be very clear, maybe we'll finish up right now. Candace, you are doing an absolutely amazing job. The fact that you opened up and were this vulnerable with essentially a bunch of strangers on the internet is incredibly courageous. The same to all the rest of you who left comments and shared what you're struggling with. I'm constantly in awe of how courageous and brave and amazing you all are. You're doing a good job. I promise that everything's going to be okay. Everything is already okay, but sometimes it doesn't feel like that, especially when we're depressed. But Candace, you're brave as fuck. Just start letting yourself, and it is just letting yourself, start letting yourself daydream a little bit and come up with some goals and some things that you want to work on. Figure out slowly over the next few months or years who you would like to be or who you would like to become. And then just take a little tiny baby step towards that, every day or every week or every month. It's just slowly working towards who you want to be. But you're already doing a really good job. You're already courageous. Thank you for being so loving with other people in the audience. And everybody listening, why not give Candace a little bit of love if that's something you feel like you would like to do? Leave a comment and tell her that she's fucking brave as hell for opening up about anorexia and depression. That's not necessarily easy shit to open up about. Good job, Candace. Should we give Candace a good job?
Good job.
You got to do the thing. You got to do it like that. Come on, we got to.
I don't do the thing.
Good job, Candace. Fuck yeah. And obviously, if any of you want coaching, there's a link in the description below to that. You know where to find the coaching, but you're all amazing. Keep being you. Whatever your goals might be, whether that's money, relationships, sex and dating, fitness, health, friendships, whatever, we are here to help you make those beautiful goals come to life. Ed did it. Taylor did it. Harry did it. None of them are special. If you're listening to this, you know you're capable of more than you're currently giving. You already want something more than what everybody else around you seems to be content with. You want to achieve more, be more, give more to the world. You know it, and I know it. You're destined for something beautiful. Click the link to the coaching in the description below and let us help you get there. Happiness starts today.